All right, so we're under the deuce, 87 Air Force deuce. I'm changing the transfer case so I can get this thing going. The transfer case is locked up. I'm not going to show you how to change the transfer case because it's really simple, but I'm going to show you what's involved in doing a rear transfer case output seal. All right, so let me spin you around here. This is the back of the transfer case, and as you can see, you can take your entire parking brake assembly or parking brake assembly and drum off in one piece. You take your big pivot bolt out here. There's a nut on the back side. There's an 1.5 inch nut, I think, inch and 7/16. And this side, the bolt is 1 3/8. Then you take your drive flange output, drive flange nut off. It's an 1.5 inch. There's a cotter pin through it. And you take your parking brake cable off and the springs off, and the whole thing slides off in one piece, just like you see it. Now this, the output seal holder, is this whole entire piece right here. The arm that the parking brake assembly pivots on and everything. So as you can see here with this lip, the seal goes in from the back side, which means you've got to take this whole assembly off. And this is a pin that goes into the transfer case. So once you take these bolts off, you've still got to knock it off with this pin. Sometimes they're not too hard to get off. Sometimes you got to get on the back side and kind of beat on them with a hammer a bit. But I don't have the seal number on hand. I know I've got some in my stock. It's just a common seal. If I'm not mistaken, it's the same one that the pinions use on the axles and stuff. So if you get that seal number, then you know what you need here. So you pull this off. There's shims behind it, stainless steel sheet metal shims. So don't lose them. It doesn't matter what order they go back on together. But there's no gasket, and there's no gasket sealing material. It's just the shims, and it's like a machine tolerance thing where it doesn't leak because everything's flat and smooth, and you bolt it together. And yeah, so you can put a little bit of sealing compound on it. Do not use silicone. Those shims set the preload for the output bearing here. So if you use a sealant on that shim stack and you open up the preload there, you're gonna fry your output bearing. So yeah, be careful with that. Anyway, that's it. This whole assembly comes off. Knock your seal out, put your new seal in, put the assembly back on with the shims, throw it all back together. It's not too bad of a job. You can do it in probably a couple hours, maybe less, if you're a good mechanic, and you've got all the right tools. So yeah. All right, I suppose since I'm already here, I'll show you guys how to change the case, or tell you guys. It's not hard. Just a little more work than removing the parking brake assembly. I like to do it with that off, because that big drum makes the whole thing a lot more awkward to handle and move around. So take your park brake assembly off first, and you'll want to take your drive shafts off, of course, all three. Roll around to here. You see I've already got the shafts out. Take your jack shaft off up there. Take your speedometer cable adapter off, or just unscrew the cable from the adapter. You'll want to take your air shift line off right there if it has an air shift case in it. You'll want to take your shift rod off right there. I think that's a 3/4 inch bolt and nut. And then you take, well, depending on what kind of cross member you've got on this side, there's a couple different ones, but you'll want to take your floor pan out and support it with a chain from the top. Now you can stick an engine hoist in through the door and use a chain fall on that, or you can run like a piece of wood 4x4 across through your windshield frame in the back of the cab and a chain fall off of that. Then you'll take these there's 4 bolts here that hold this side of the case, and you go over here and it's the same thing here. Those 4 bolts, don't worry about the center mount bolt, because you can take that out on both sides and it'll just sit there. It's not going to fall out. So you don't need to take those off, just the 4 bolts on each side, and then lower your transfer case out. And installation is obviously a reverser removal. Oh, and don't forget to take your park brake cable off of the bracket. Now, that would be helpful. You don't want to break a park brake cable. And you definitely don't want to bend that bracket right there either. That's your stop bolt bracket for your park brake lever. So when you turn it off, it goes only to that much open, instead of opening too much and then rubbing the shoes. Because if you go too much or too little, the shoes will rub on the drum. So yeah. Anyway, it is really simple. It is a bit time consuming because everything's heavy and kind of relatively hard to get to, but yeah, it should be easy for you. The floor pan bolts, I think, are 7/16. Just take your passenger seat out and your center transmission tunnel and back floor pan, and go from there. All right, so I'm about ready to pull the transfer case out of this truck. I've got everything out but a couple of the bolts and the mounts down below. Everything's disconnected and off. I want to show you the setup. A lot of people do it this way, or using like a 4x4 over the cab or something. I went looking for another Harbor Freight shop crane yesterday and drove all over the state on a goose chase because they kept telling me other stores had one. I finally went to the last store that had one on the other side of the state again, and they had a display model only that was missing the damn legs and half of the hydraulic ram, so I got it for 25 bucks, but it's useless. Anyway, this is what I'm doing with it. So I use just the boom across the back of the cab and through the front windshield frame, and my 5-ton spare tire chain fall hangs nicely in there on the bolt. Now you just connect a chain to your transfer case and you use it to drop it out that way, and you can pull the new one right up in place the same way. I need a longer 1/2-inch bolt for the top over there to put the chain on it. I don't have any bolts around the shop anymore. All of my stuff is not here, so yeah, I'm gonna have to go to town to get a bolt. I need to buy another. I guess the newer shop crane, it's like 3 times the price of the old one. This one, they were on clearance, but yeah, I've still got my old one, but it's at one of my other buddies' houses, and he's out of the state. He's living out of the state now, so I can't get it. So I had to buy another one. And I got this piece of shit, and so now I've got to go buy another one tomorrow, I guess. I'm not going to town today, just because I've got to get a bud socket for my new Impact from Napa, and Napa's closed on Sunday. So I might as well just wait and go tomorrow and get the crane and the bolts and the socket all at one time. But yeah, so the new Harbor Freight crane is supposedly a 2-ton, even though it's exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. They just changed the paint colors and put Pittsburgh on it. But it's $369 instead of $150 like the old one was. So yeah. Anyway, it's not like I don't have the money. I just don't want to spend it because I've already got one. I can't get to it. And anyway, yeah. So that's how you do it. If you don't have to use a boom like that. You can use just a piece of wood 4x4 across. It's plenty enough to support the weight of that transfer case. Don't use a 2x4. That will get you hurt.